Shanghai 2025 was straight out of a thriller movie. Players were dropping like flies all week.
Oh my goodness.
But this literally today has been a survival of the fittest, hasn't it? Oh, that's remarkable. But at what cost?
The humidity was absolutely cooking everyone.
Both players are floored almost.
Brutal conditions here in Shanghai all week already.
And it was yet another brutal reality check for the GOAT, and the generation that was supposed to replace him. But hey, this is tennis, and some stories just can't be made up. Like two unseeded cousins turning a tournament into a family business. Or Valentin Vachereau's undeniable date with destiny.
Set match, Vachereau.
In a week where top seeds wilted one by one and underdogs prevailed, last week in tennis reminded us that victory does indeed belong to the most tenacious. Here we go with a full breakdown of the Shanghai final, the important storylines that popped up all week, and the key moments that made Shanghai 2025 absolutely unforgettable. Last year's Shanghai finalist Djokovic was looking to go a step further this time. Having not played a single match since his US Open semifinal loss to Alcaraz, the opening rounds were always going to be tricky. But Shanghai is an event Djokovic has historically done well at. First up was Novak's old foe, Marin Cilic. Both men found themselves in what was the oldest Masters 1000 main draw meeting since 1990. The match was tight, but right off the bat, you could tell that Novak's forehand was the star of the show.
Outstanding tennis.
Novak went toe-to-toe with Cilic from the baseline and leaned on his forehand to do the damage once the opening presented itself.
How about that?
Cilic blasted 20 winners in the first set alone, but still couldn't get past a stubborn Novak who was hitting clean off both wings. Djokovic broke Cilic for the first time in the third game of the second set and never looked back. It's worth pointing out that Novak hit 56 forehands all match and only made 3 forehand errors. A 40th career win in Shanghai. However, the cracks were starting to form on the wall because in the third round against Yannick Hanfmann, Novak found himself fighting for survival. Hanfmann's huge serving and variety troubled Novak in the first set. Then came the second set, with Novak now battling his own body and vomiting during a changeover. But desperate times call for desperate measures. Post-puke Novak emerged as a different beast, and he began to shorten points and finally broke the world number 150 at the death. Djokovic then powered through the decider to get the W after 2 hours and 45 minutes of intense tennis. Novak was up against Jaume Munar in the fourth round, and only God knows how he pulled this one off. It was Novak against the humidity, a leg issue, ankle pain, stomach sickness, and oh, Jaume Munar, I almost forgot. Novak received multiple medical timeouts and could barely move an inch at times. The last point of the second set perfectly captures this.
In the end, he was just able to wear him down.
Having played so many long rallies all match, in one of his most physical matches all season, Djokovic once again leaned on his forehand to do the heavy lifting.
His forehand is getting bigger and bigger.
Let me say this. It's remarkable how Djokovic has gone from a backhand movement return-oriented player to a big server and forehand-dominant player in the twilight of his career. Novak has relied on his serve and forehand to keep him at the very top. He hit his forehand with extreme power and depth in the third set. Looking at his serve the past few years, we see that Nole has won a higher percentage of service points this year than throughout his career overall. These are the kinds of evolutions you want to see players like Zverev, Medvedev, and Rublev make, because honestly, your ability to keep reinventing the wheel when things aren't working for you is what keeps you on top for so long. Rublev totally gets the assignment. He's talked about the need to evolve. Problem is, Rublev hasn't won a single match since his fourth round US Open exit 5 weeks ago, going 0-3 the entire time since. A straight sets loss to Valentin Roger in Hangzhou, a straight sets loss to Kaboli in Beijing, and now another opening round loss to Nishioka in Shanghai, which, by the way, ended in a racket smash.
And that's now 4 wins here.
Seeing Nishioka hit so many aces on crucial points, well, not taking anything away from Nishioka, tells you something about Rublev's return tactics. The thing is, although Rublev has insights into his problem, he needs to get better at a whole lot of things. Rublev turns 28 in a couple of days, and I can't help but imagine if he's willing to accept the risk of completely overhauling his game at this point. There's nothing wrong with taking notes from Sinner and Alcaraz, but really his focus should just be on avoiding losses to the guys ranked way below him. Rublev has gotten rid of his fitness coach after 3 years and is looking to work out the kinks. A clear contrast in attitude compared to Zverev. It's a little tricky with Sasha though. On the one hand, you want him to maybe spend less time whining on the imperfections of the modern game and more time fixing his own game. Federer raised some points about the uniformity of court speeds a couple of weeks ago.
And now everybody plays similar. It's because the tournament directors have allowed, with the ball speed and the court speed, that every week is basically the same. And that's why you can just go from winning, I don't know, French, Wimbledon, US Open, and just play the same way.
And Zverev jumped on the train, going even further to say this.
Listen, there's been a lot of talk about the court speed. It's slower this year. Obviously, they want Yannick and Carlos to do well every tournament, and that's what they prefer.
Here's the thing. I've always known Shanghai to be one of the faster hard courts that we see on the tour throughout the year, so the fact that the conditions were so slow had me scratching my head just a bit. I mean, if you're gonna make such drastic changes, everyone should be getting the memo, instead of leaving them to wonder whether they're actually in Shanghai or at Indian Wells. It's hard for me to believe that all the tournament directors around the world are in cahoots on making the courts the same speed, but at the same time, Sasha's comments leave me scratching my head just a little bit. Like, on the one hand, you want to see him perform well at these tournaments, but when he keeps deflecting and making excuses, it's kind of hard to feel for him on this one. Historically, I've always thought it's super cool to see how the different courts play around the world, but there are also other factors to consider, like heat, humidity, their impact on the balls, that are going to have an impact on the pace of play. Anyway, back to Zverev. I'm pretty much certain that the courts weren't made slower for Rinderknech, so what really went wrong in his loss to Arthur?
He's made it!
Why is Rinderknech up 2-0 in their head-to-head, and how come he has more top 10 wins than Zverev this year? One thing that stood out in the loss was Zverev's inability to get first serves in the middle of the box in play, given how slow and humid the conditions were. Rinderknech is a big server, so it probably could have been worse on a faster surface.
For the second time this season.
Zverev getting owned by Medvedev, Fritz, Cerundolo, Bublik, and now Rinderknech makes me wonder if his decline is actually around the corner, and it's only a matter of time before his ranking slips. I don't see him making any significant adjustments to his game, and while Sasha has admitted a loss in confidence, I can't really see a silver bullet here. If you find one, let me know in the comments. Meanwhile, Medvedev is going to be kicking himself for the missed opportunity in Shanghai. He was one set away from his first hard courts final since March of 2024, but just couldn't get past the Rinderknech hurdle. On paper, the week was solid, solving the Lerner Tien puzzle.
An astonishing victory.
Breezing past other opponents in straights, beating Alex de Minaur to reach 50 top 10 career wins, and reaching the semis in Shanghai was a massive win in itself, considering where Daniil is in his career. But losing to Rinderknech as the favorite? That's gotta sting. But let's look at the loss to Arthur because it highlights some deeper problems. It's one thing to only convert 1 of 11 breakpoint opportunities in a high-stakes semifinal, but a completely different thing to crumble under pressure. So many times this season, we've seen Medvedev get really nervy and tight while serving to stay in a match or a set. It's been kind of a recurring theme, and it's easy to see that the Medvedev of now isn't as confident as the Medvedev of old. It's actually expected when you've lost 7 of your last 8 matches that went the distance. The problem to me, however, seems to be his response to the situation. Picking so many fights with umpires and the unsportsmanlike conduct at times seems to be the wrong attitude. I get it. You've been world number 1, won major titles, and now you haven't won an ATP title in 2.5 years. You're out of the top 10, and now you're panicking. But there were positives. Physically, he handled the conditions pretty well, and tactically, he was trying new stuff on the court. And then there's Casper Ruud, who retired against Zizou Bears in the second round.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to injury, Mr. Ruud is unable to continue.
Casper was barely moving to defend down the line attacks at the end of the second set. It seemed to me that the humidity had gotten the better of him, and Casper resorted to going for broke on the second serve, hitting desperate drop shots, and taking large cuts at the ball on returns. I'm pretty sure he'll be regretting not taking his chances early in the second set for a straight sets win. Looking at the broader picture though, Ruud is reflected on his season as a mixture of highs and lows. Of course, winning Madrid was the high, but the lows? That nagging knee injury that kept him out of action for several weeks, random losses here and there, and the hectic calendar have Casper unsatisfied. Ruud is still in contention for the ATP Finals, however, he'll need the stars align for the next couple of weeks if he really wants to make it to Turin. Casper's retirement was just one of the 7 retirements last week, not to mention players like Novak and Bruna, who were literally fighting for their lives on the court.
Why ATP doesn't have a 40-keep rule? I don't know, it's a very good question.
Sinner's retirement grabbed the headlines for obvious reasons. The defending champion entered the tournament with a 38-2 record on hard courts since this time last year. He had gotten rid of Altmaier in his opening match and was looking to close the gap between him and Alcaraz for the year-end #1 title. Up against Griekspoor in the third round, Sinner played a clean tiebreak to take the first set.
And that'll do it.
Then came the second set with a lot of grueling rallies as Griekspoor put on a fight.
Magic!
Sinner had 3 breakpoints with Griekspoor 3-4, love 40 on serve, but couldn't convert. Griekspoor would then break Sinner to love in the 11th game and hold the Forza decider. By now, Sinner had begun to struggle. Come the third set, we saw Jannik limping in between points and getting frequent massages on his right thigh. By the 5th game, the cramps had gotten so bad that he could barely stand.
Oh my goodness.
The defending champ was eventually forced to retire.
Who they are.
We now know that Sinner could skip the Paris Masters for the 2nd year in a row. He really hates Bercy, doesn't he? Sinner will also likely be unavailable for Italy during the Davis Cup. He's carried the team to back-to-back titles, but not sure there are going to be too many complaints about this. Anyways, going back to the brutal conditions in Shanghai, I totally get why the pros are complaining about the heat and humidity. The conditioning level required to play pro tennis is pretty insane, as I've come to learn myself this year, and training in Miami, I can totally relate to what these guys are going through on court. When it's hot and humid outside, it affects your movement, it affects how light you feel on your feet, and it certainly affects the quality of your shots, regardless of what your level is. Anyways, if you want to see what training in extreme heat did to me, check out this video that I did with Emilio Sanchez in Naples, Florida a few months ago. After seeing so many retirements, the ATP is now considering implementing an official heat policy. If I remember correctly, if the temperature goes to 86 degrees Fahrenheit or above, the WTA actually has a rule that after the first and second sets, players are entitled to a 10-minute heat break. The ATP, on the other hand, doesn't have a specific trigger temperature, but it's more left up to the tournament supervisor's discretion. I think that as temperatures rise around the world, and especially given that tennis is a hot weather sport, these heat rules are essential to protecting the well-being of the players on and off the court. The 6 Kings Slam is currently underway, and Alcaraz will be the favorite to take this one, having had enough time to recover from Tokyo. The financial incentive is huge for the players. I mean, the participation fee alone is close to what you get for being a Grand Slam finalist, but for way less time on the court. So if you're wondering why a player can complain about the grueling tennis calendar, but then go on to participate in the exhibition, I'm sure you have your answers. Look, I think we can all agree that there's a wealth inequality problem in tennis, but at the same time, these exhibitions are really cool and really good for the sport to grow. I think that what the Saudis are doing, collecting all of this top-level tennis talent in one place during somewhat of a lull in the tennis calendar, is overall good for the sport and only going to help tennis grow worldwide and reach new audiences. The top Americans had a disappointing outing last week in Shanghai. Shelton's return to action seemed a bit rushed, considering that only a month ago he was dealing with the worst pain of his life. And although he insisted he was fine, I had my doubts about the left shoulder. And although it seemed okay during the Goffin match, Shelton was nowhere close to being 100%, especially from the baseline. Ben won an abysmal 8 points in total for rallies over 4 shots. Meanwhile, Goffin was dialed in on the return and was letting his backhand fly.
Oh, no way.
On the offensive side of things, Goffin took the game to Shelton with clinical volleys to shorten points. But with so many forehands dropping short and a failure to settle into his rhythm, Shelton couldn't quite shake off the rust, and he ended up falling to Goffin in straights. For the second time this year, I should mention.
For the second time this season.
Tiafoe, on the other hand, lost to Hanfmann in his opening match, and at this point, expectations aren't so high from Big Foe. The Asian swing just wasn't it for him, and now, after having lost back-to-back matches, Tiafoe would just be looking to keep his seeding for the 2026 Australian Open. Meanwhile, Fritz's third-round loss to Perricard could only be seen as a blessing in disguise, because honestly, the suffering was too much on the court. Both players were pushed to the limits.
Both players are flawed almost.
But for Fritz, it got so bad that he couldn't even put a ball in play towards the end.
It's a build-up, isn't it? You just can't get any air in your lungs, the lactic acid builds.
We know Taylor to be one of the more hardworking players on the ATP Tour, and he doesn't always know when to rest. Under the brutal humidity in Shanghai, Fritz's body was literally screaming for help.
Yeah, the legs are just jelly right now for Fritz.
Now, given that Fritz is in a good spot to qualify for the ATP Finals, the loss could actually be a bit of a blessing in disguise. It'll give him a chance to rest up and hopefully get himself right for the final few weeks of the season. Elsewhere, de Minaur became only the third Aussie to register 50 wins in an ATP season after reaching the quarterfinals in Shanghai. De Minaur might have consolidated his 7th place in the race, but for Holger Rune, it's a different story altogether. His quarterfinal loss to Vachereau was tightly contested and could have really gone either way. Rune's brilliant defending earned him the first set.
Game end, first set.
Both players broke each other in the second set, but couldn't hold on, so the set carried to a tiebreak. With the scores level at 4 apiece, Vachereau decided to take matters into his own hands.
Oh, that is outrageous.
And 2 points later, the momentum had now shifted.
Game end, second set.
By the third set, the 10th seed had now begun to fade and was now fighting through cramps, which gave Vachereau the physical edge. Rune called for the trainer twice to massage his right upper leg.
Game Vachereau.
He continued to go for his shots, but Vachereau held on to convert on his second match point.
Game, set, match.
The man from Monaco.
But let me say this, Rune needs to get a handle on his emotions. Midway through that decider, we saw him having a rough exchange with his mother, and when he got broken. In that game, he ended up lashing out at his box.
Love 40.
The attitude still needs a lot of work, and while I can say I sympathize him with his body suffering under those brutal conditions, it doesn't justify his behavior when things go south. Interestingly enough, 4 of Rune's last 5 losses have come against players ranked outside the top 100. Excluding Vachereau because he's the new GOAT, what went wrong in the losses to Struff, Atman, and Jarry? We can't exclude Vachereau because what he did in Shanghai was beyond special. Vachereau didn't even know he was going to play in Shanghai. He arrived in China for the first time, by the way, as an alternate.
I didn't even come as a qualifier, I came as an alternate. I wasn't sure to even play the qualifying.
And here's the crazy part. Vachereau needed 3 sets in both of his qualifying matches to come through. He came from a set down against Basaviretti and was only a couple of points away from losing to Draxl. Riding the hot hand though, Vachereau took down Jere in their first round in straights.
Set a match, Vachereau. 2 sets to 6-3, 6-4.
Vachereau then collided with Bublik in the second round, and this one was wild because after Vachereau lost the first set, he started to play out of his skin and was going all out on his shots. Both men were serving big, but Vachereau seemed to want it more. Once he got the decisive break in the third, there was no looking back. Then came Machac in the third round. I have to mention, Machac hasn't been able to stay healthy for the longest time. This time though, he came into the match with a knee injury and got bageled in the first set before pulling the plug early on in the second. Vachereau then faced Griekspoor in the fourth round. Griekspoor went 2.5 months without winning a single match, but was looking to build on his momentum after getting past a compromised Sinner. After an excellent first set of tennis, Griekspoor failed to convert all 6 of his breakpoint opportunities in the second set, and honestly just seemed out of it in the tiebreak.
Well, in the end,
Vachereau got the job done in 3, and Griekspoor was left regretting those missed opportunities in the second. Val then cracked the top 100 for the first time after taking down Rune in the quarterfinal as the fairy tale run continued. Up next was Novak, who had just defied his bodily limits against Bergs in the quarterfinal. Djokovic shook off a left foot problem and relied on his incredible defensive skills to take the first set. But the second set, that was pure defiance from Djokovic.
Oh, can you believe?
Long story short, Novak broke in that game but couldn't serve it out. Then, at 5 apiece, 30 all, Novak decided to give the Great Wall of China a run for its money. Repelling 4 overheads and a swinging volley that reminded me of that Murray-Kokkinakis match at the Australian Open. Anywho, Djokovic broke Griekspoor again and took the match in straights. A record-extending 80th Masters 1000 semi-final for the GOAT, and also the oldest man ever to do it, all while being 3rd in the ATP race. This comment from Bergs struck me though. For many of these top players, the mental part of playing against their idol Djokovic and the massive respect they have for him makes it difficult for them to sometimes execute, simply because of the pressure of the occasion. But for Vachereau, oh, that guy is built different. I knew there wasn't much left in the tank for Djokovic, but I still thought he had enough to get past Val. Apparently, he didn't. Novak was outplayed and outclassed in the semis, but as is always the case, Djokovic was gracious in defeat as Val booked his ticket to the final. A first top 10 win for the Monegasque. From one family member to another, Rinderknech also had a fantastic week. Since the start of the grass swing in June, only Alcaraz has claimed more ATP top 20 wins than Rinderknech. Arthur's run was nothing short of spectacular, with the Frenchman taking down 5 seeds along the way. From getting a retirement against Medvedev to breezing past Mickelson, the early rounds looked good. Then came the mouth-watering clash against Zverev, which we already talked about, and then a straight sets win against Lehechka in the 4th round. Lehechka had a bit of a bad day, but man, Rinderknech was serving really well, which also made him swing a bit more freely on the return. The Rinderknech forehand was also dialed in, but perhaps the most noticeable thing about him was how he had now become clutch under pressure points.
unbelievable.
Rinderknech then dismantled Felix in the quarterfinal from start to finish. Felix would probably consider this a missed opportunity considering how well he's been playing lately. Felix struggled to win points on Rinderknech's serve all match. The variety from the Frenchman was simply mind-boggling. The drop shots, the volleys, and the variation in ball height didn't give Felix much rhythm to work with from the baseline. Rinderknech extended his record in deciding sets this year to 13-4 after taking down Medvedev in the semis. And just like that, the tennis world got the final that we didn't know we needed. It was only the third all-unseeded Masters 1000 final in series history. And in terms of expectations, maybe only Sak Krajinovic in Paris 2017 holds a candle to it. Two cousins enjoying the best week of their career. Both men went from playing juniors together to becoming college teammates at Texas A&M. Vachereau had now become the lowest ranked player, as well as the first man from Monaco to reach an ATP Masters 1000 final. And Arthur was also looking to nab his first ATP title. Here's how they stacked up against each other. Both men are big servers. Rinderknech has the forehand, net game, and variety. Vachereau has a much better backhand and also moves really well. The first set was tense. Vachereau looked a bit jaded and wasn't making any returns. Meanwhile, Rinderknech was hitting with a lot of intent and got rewarded soon enough.
And he's taken the first opportunity.
Rinderknech's backhand also caught fire and was doing quite a bit of damage. Once the nerves settled in though, Vachereau began to find his footing. Still, Rinderknech was the better player for a set and a half, with the serve +1 doing a lot of damage. Up to midway through the second set, Vachereau still hadn't produced a breakpoint all match. The turning point, however, came at 3-3, 30-all in the second set, where Rinderknecht had the chance to earn a breakpoint opportunity, but ended up dumping the volley into the net. Vachereau broke the very next game with this beautiful backhand. And just like that, the momentum had flipped. Vachereau held to take the second set. Let's also remember that Arthur had physical issues which affected his serve before he needed to take a medical timeout. Rinderknecht came out slow in the third set, and Vachereau broke right away.
It doesn't get any better than that!
And as he'd done all tournament, Vachereau went all out in the decider, upping the serve speed, forehand, and overall aggression. I should also mention that after the first 4 games of the third set, the difference in backhand quality between both players was clear as day. Vachereau was having way easier holds and only made 1 unforced error in the third set. How do you beat a guy like that? On the other hand, Rinderknecht was digging deep into every service game. Vachereau sealed the deal, and just like that, the man from Monaco became a Masters 1000 champion. It's crazy to think that Vachereau has the same number of Masters 1000 titles as these guys. Val came from a set down in 6 out of his 9 matches in Shanghai. How he spent almost 19 hours on the court under those brutal conditions, showing almost no signs of fatigue or exhaustion, is still kinda beyond me. Even Rinderknecht couldn't even stand during the trophy ceremony. Val's victory is a reminder to guys ranked between 125 and 400. Putting in the hard work on the practice courts and in the gym when no one is watching might be all you need to set yourself up for success, because skill-wise, many of them aren't so far away from the guys at the very top. He won 3 challengers last year and was looking to get into the top 100 until he got injured and had his rhythm completely disrupted. Today, with all that considered, he's a top 40 player. He's also more than doubled his entire career prize money with just 2 weeks of brilliant tennis. As for Rinderknecht, he had a below-average net game, going 12 out of 24 at the net. But more importantly, he seemed unable to compartmentalize the mental and emotional part of facing a family member on the biggest stage. His performance in Shanghai, however, remains a huge success considering he once thought about quitting the sport. But let's talk about the women a bit. In Wuhan, 3-time defending champion Sabalenka became only the 4th woman to win her first 20 matches at a single WTA tournament since 1990. However, she fell just short in her quest to pull off the four-peat, losing to Pegula in the semis. Down 2-5 in the third, Pegula dug deep to go up 6-5, until she damn near gave me a heart attack after serving 4 double faults while trying to close out the match. Pegula got broken in that game despite holding match points, and the first thing that came to mind was the Noskova match in Beijing, where JPEG also threw away a couple of match points. This time though, she pulled herself by the bootstraps to get over the line. Her variety was on full display as well during the tiebreak, and honestly, this had to be one of her most impressive wins. She snapped a 4-match losing streak to Arena, ended Sabalenka's 20-match winning streak in Wuhan, and also ended Sabalenka's streak of 19 consecutive tiebreaks won. Sabalenka will end the year as world number 1 for the 2nd year in a row as a reward for her consistency all season long. But come on, we need to stop this. Sabalenka nearly hit a ball kid after getting broken at 5-all in the decider. She maybe got away with this one. The ball kid wasn't harmed and Sabalenka wasn't given any warning, but it could have been a lot worse. On the other half of the draw, we had Goff taking down Paolini. I really can't remember the last time I witnessed 11 breaks of serve in a row, but we saw that after the first couple of games. However, props to Coco for going hard and heavy into the Paolini backhand to prevent the Italian from attacking her own forehand. Paolini's level went down in the second set, and Goff got the W in straights. The final against Pegula was only the 3rd All-American WTA 1000 final. All of Pegula's Wuhan matches had gone the distance, so it looked as if the final was going to follow a similar path. However, Coco had other ideas. After a roller coaster first set that ended with Coco getting the decisive break late on, Pegula had a 5-3 lead, but then Goff won 4 games in a row to take it in straights.
And Coco Gauff is the Wuhan Open champion.
During those 4 games, Goff frustrated and already exhausted Pegula with a mix of high spins, slices, and selective aggression, just like she did in the Paolini match. A 3rd WTA 1000 title for Goff, 11 career WTA titles, and also Coco has now won her first 9 hardcourt finals. In all honesty, this isn't the first time we've seen Gauff appear to be in a slump and then pop up and go on some insane run. Winning Wuhan without dropping a set while simultaneously correcting major flaws in her game just goes to show how much of a great champion she really is. She certainly doesn't get enough credit in my opinion. Elsewhere, Andreeva, Paulini, and Rybakina are fighting for the final 2 spots in the WTA final. Less than 450 points separate all 3 women, and the race will likely go down to the wire. Last week in tennis was absolutely insane, and in my opinion, the Shanghai final was the tennis storyline of this year. If you loved this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and drop a comment if you have any other ideas or concepts you want me to cover next here on Courtside. We're so close to 100,000 subscribers, and none of this is possible without you and your support. So until next time, keep going for the lines.